Would that penalty have been given under VAR in the Premier League? Well, the answer to that is obvious. Depends on who was playing. Hi, my name is Mike and welcome to my vlog about football in general and Burnley FC in particular. A vlog that this week is looking at the unfolding scandal around referee David Coote and his claims that he is the victim of an AI fake and wondering who on earth would do such a thing. Well, I can think of at least 6 Premier League fan bases and at least 2 owners that constantly exist in a state of extreme paranoia, so take your pick. 1-0 win over Swansea on Remembrance Day, a game that had absolutely no buzz around the town, around the stadium on the way in, not least because it was a 3 PM on Sunday kickoff thanks to television. Now, I know the TV money is more than welcome. It adds up to, I think, around about $2.5 million a season, plus somewhere around about 50 grand a game. But having a kick-off on Remembrance Day has always been full of controversy anyway, thinking back a couple of years. And then just having it at 3 PM on a Sunday in the middle of November, with the way that the team is playing at the moment, it wasn't a surprise to see quite a few empty seats in the stands. Credit to the Swansea fans, I think about 450 or so came up for the game from Swansea. Fair play to them for doing that in a cold, wet, miserable, especially journey home on Sunday. Yep, they went home having lost to an injury time penalty scored by Jay Rodriguez, which was probably the only real chance that the Clarets created in the 90 minutes. Would that penalty have been given under VAR in the Premier League? Well, the answer to that is obvious. Depends on who was playing. Yep, if that was basically an Arsenal or a Man United or a Liverpool or a Chelsea or whatever, that penalty would not have been given, especially at Turf Moor, but flip the teams around and absolutely it would. And to be honest, looking at it, if I was a Swansea fan, I'd be annoyed at that one as well, because it was a little bit soft. It was a handball, it was a penalty according to the rules of the game, but it was a little bit soft, to be honest. Even at the time, I was a bit confused about what exactly was given, but mainly because the referee took such a long time to give it. The handball happened, and then he let the play continue for a good couple of seconds to see if there was an advantage to the Clarets before blowing his whistle and pointing to the spot. Now, that's pretty much a textbook example of correct refereeing. And a textbook example of correct refereeing that makes no one in the stands particularly happy on the way it unfolded. So yeah, a 1-0 win, probably maybe deserved on balance, maybe. We wouldn't have had any complaints if we'd have finished it at 0-0. In fact, in terms of complaints, or speaking of complaints, you could really feel in the stands the boos beginning to be built up in the fan base. You could just feel the muttering from people who were still there that they're going to let it out if this continues and finishes 0-0. Now, we didn't get to that point, which is fair enough, obviously due to the result, but you couldn't really blame them. And even playing free from desire, the celebrations felt a little bit half-hearted. At the end of the day, we are not a good team to watch play football. And it occurs to me that I can accept being a very good team and enjoying that. I can accept being a fairly crap team. I'm not exactly enjoying that, but not particularly caring as long as the game is entertaining. But this particular Burnley team is committing the crime that is most heinous, I think, for a fan, especially a paying customer, to have to deal with, and that is they're dull and they're boring. Now, there are a lot of people making some excuses for Scott Parker. People are ignoring the warnings that were given to us by Fulham fans, by Bournemouth fans who predicted this is exactly how it would play out. He's been given a lot of leeway and a lot of not rope, that's not the right word, but a lot of kind of space to kind of put his tactics, his team philosophy together. And I've got to say, after 15 games, if this is what I have to deal with for the rest of the season, I'm not going to be particularly happy bunny. Now, a lot of people are trying to find excuses. Those people generally are the same people who wanted company out last year. So, go be reading to that what you will, but I'm not taking transfer business as an excuse. The transfer window was not great. Let's be straight there. We lost players late, we lost good players late, and we have not replaced them with players of the same quality. I understand that, and I give Parker the room to work with what he's been given. But in the 12 games since the transfer window closed, we have scored 9 goals, and 2 of those were penalties. The problem is the tactics. The problem is the way the players are set up. Now, I'm not one of those people who says that players are just basically put onto the pitch and told not what to do, just go out and then express themselves. Modern football is not that way. Managers are directing players how to play at all times, literally in certain cases down to making sure that their players move left or right or forward or back by a matter of feet, not even yards. Dyche ball was very, very structured. It was very, very pre-planned. The players knew what they were doing from a defensive point of view, from a defensive framework. That's a Dyche word that he always loved to use. But the midfielders and the wingers had pre-planned plays, pre-planned runs that they were going to do. McNeil knew what he was going to be doing. The strikers knew where to be when the wingers had the ball. You had Ashley Westwood doing that kind of long banana ball curved round. All that was pre-planned and tactical. Company ball, very different in terms of the style of play, but it was probably even more robotic. It was probably even more pre-planned. Players knew exactly what they were to do in every single situation. As he famously said in the Mission to Burnley documentary, it'll take 120 meetings before the players get exactly the plan in their head of what they're supposed to be doing. Now, you could agree whether it was right or it was wrong, but you cannot say that it was not pre-planned. So you can look at these tactics and you can kind of say, well, that is the plan. That is the way that Scott Parker is setting these players up. You can give him the excuse that the players aren't good enough to pull it off. And I'm going to disagree with you there, because what they're being asked to do is pretty basic stuff. The main problems are twofold. The first is that no pass is ever made to a player who is running forward. No pass is ever made to a player who looks like he is running forward, because the player is told to stand there and wait for the ball to come to him, and he's usually facing either backwards or sideways. There is no tempo, there is no forward movement, there is nothing happening. That is why the ball is always going sideways, because the players are facing sideways. They're facing backwards. They're not moving to get the ball at any time. But the other thing is that both wingers absolutely refuse, and I mean refuse, to go to the byline. If you watch Jane Lansty or Sarmiento or Koleosho, you will see them get the ball and cut inside every single time, no matter how wide they are on the pitch, no matter whether they're one-on-one with their fullback, no matter how much space is behind that fullback. They will turn inside. If they are running down the wing, they will turn inside and aim for the corner of the penalty box. They'll aim to run there and play the ball inside. Even if the fullback has made an overlapping run towards the byline and is in space and screaming for the ball, the plan, the tactics is not to give it to them. This is either a failure of tactics or it's a failure of coaching. Koleosho is frustrating people left, right and centre, myself included. He is full of talent, he is full of speed, but he is not being coached properly. He is not being coached to take on his man. Because if he is being coached to take on his man, then he's not doing it. At which point, why is he on the pitch? Because if he's disregarding the manager's instructions. You see him try to take the ball into the middle between two players and use his speed, and then he loses it. He's taking it into a situation where all the defence has to do is wait, because the fullback shows him inside, the player runs there, and the two of them combine, the fullback and the covering midfielder combine to block the run. If either Anthony or Koleosho make it through those two, they're going to run slap bang into either the centre-back or the central midfielder anyway. They are being told to do this, and they are running into dead ends because that is the tactical structure. I have stopped only recently paying the therapy bills after the Lincoln game, the FA Cup game. And the reason I bring this up is because famously Dyche didn't give a damn about cup games. He sent the players out. They weren't his first choice 11. He sent the players out and basically went, whatever, lads, I don't particularly care what you do or how you play. And that particular game was full of players who had no plan, who basically decided that they were going to try and run it between them, 2 or 3 attackers up against 8 defenders, and try to go straight down the middle. And that is why we lost. Yet this tactical plan is to do exactly the same. It's to go straight down the middle and at some point try to have it so that there is an exchange of passes, a quick 1-2 or a 1-2-3, which gets the ball through the line of defenders, like 6, 7, 8 defenders. And because it's so off the cuff, because it's so improvised, those 1-2s don't happen. Because players are not getting the understanding of when to run and where to run into, because it is not being coached into them. You could talk about a lack of service, the strikers aren't good enough, or the transfer business didn't give us the strikers, and blah, 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 blah. The strikers are not getting any service. The ball is refused to be crossed into the box, and it isn't a coincidence that the 2 best chances we had in the game came from corners. There was a fantastic save from Vigouroux, by the way. That was such a good save, a reflex save, but such a good save. And it came from a near post corner where the ball was put into the box. And the penalty came from a ball into the box. But for the rest of the 90 minutes, they will not do this. And the reason they're not doing it is, in my opinion, because they're being told not to do it. And that's the problem. So is it going to change? Not really. I can't see it happening. And I don't want to be the one saying it. I don't want to be the one saying the manager should be sacked or whatever like that. I don't want to be that. But this is exactly what I was worried about when he was appointed. This was exactly what Fulham fans and Bournemouth fans said was going to happen. This is exactly why Club Brugge got rid of him so quickly, because they could see what was happening. If the plan is to get us promoted playing this way, then, and we get promoted playing this way, then okay, it's more luck than using the resources that we have, in my opinion. If the plan is more than that, if the plan is to coach these players to be better, then we are coaching, or we are seeing a team where the joy, the attacking flair is being coached out of them into this incredibly risk-averse, safety-first football. And you can feel it. I talked about in the crowd, people are bored. They are just resigned at the moment. There is no atmosphere. I've talked before about atmosphere. There is no atmosphere because there is no generation of atmosphere. There's nothing to react to on the pitch apart from annoyance at seeing this over and over. And I'll say it to you again. Watch the next game. Watch how many times Clarets players run and take the ball into that area between the side of the 18-yard box and the touchline. How many times do we get the ball across from a good position as a cross to players who are waiting on the penalty spot? There was a moment with about 5 minutes to go where there were 3 forwards in a line around about the penalty spot waiting for the cross, and the winger came in to the corner and tried to put a low ball in. What are we doing here? What are we being forced to watch? What are these guys being forced to do? It's on the manager. It's on the coaching team. We're desperately, desperately dull. And I will come back to that. 9 goals in 13 games. And 2 of them were penalties. Yes, the plan is to win games by scrambling a goal, nicking a goal from either a set piece or a mistake, because we've got better players. And that isn't good enough. I'm sorry. And I guess I'm sorry for being negative. I'm sorry for being, this one being a negative one, but ultimately I'm not the only one who's feeling this way. And a lot of the discussion before the game on Sunday with people around me was talking about Mark Robins getting sacked by Coventry City. Kind of a bit of a Dyche-like situation, I think, actually. Dyche-ALK situation. A lot of people were sort of going, yeah, he's a decent manager. He had an excellent record in very trying times at Coventry, the same way Dyche did at Burnley. A lot of people sort of turning round and sort of saying, so, if Scott Parker got sacked and Mark Robins was appointed in his place, who'd be upset about it? And my conclusion was, well, only manufacturers of duvets, pillows and sleeping bags, but everyone else feels like they'd be quite happy. If you enjoyed this vlog, then check out the rest of the channel, because I've got about 2 seasons worth of videos covering the Championship season and last year's Premier League. If you like what I'm doing here, please click a like. If you really like what I'm doing, please click subscribe. Click the bell to get notified whenever I produce new content.